Levy, a graduate student, travels home to Finland after being away for a while from his studies in Paris, France. He is set on doing more research for his thesis throughout his stay. But while he is back, Levy feels obliged to visit his father, Juko, despite their estranged relationship after his mother's death. Later, Juko picks up Levy and drives to their lakeside family cottage. On their way, Levy talks to Juko about his thesis, which apparently centers on the study of gender performativity in literature. In reply, Juko says that he can be well informed if he meets people of the opposite sex. Juko later urges Levy to begin his military service, but Levy insists on thinking about it after finishing his studies. He subtly tells Juko that he prefers to be naturalized as a French citizen, since in France there is no compulsory military service. They then arrive at the family cottage, located in the middle of vast green forests and serene lakes. Levy walks around the place, marveling at the sight as he is slowly reminded of the memories of his childhood. He then finds out that his father is planning to sell the family cottage, and that he has hired someone from an agency to help him with the renovations. In the meantime, Levy decides to stay in the family cottage and assist Juko. While picking up additional tools, Levy goes into a storage shed, where he finds a box filled with his mother's books and old photographs. Levy is saddened by the sight, thinking that his father is throwing away the memories of his mother. Reminded of his mother's unfortunate death, Levy continues to blame Juko for what happened to her. Shortly after, Levy and Juko continue with the renovation, but Levy is still bothered by the earlier incident. He asks Juko if he ever misses his mother, to which Juko blatantly ignores. Instead, Juko takes the opportunity to teach Levy how to properly use the construction tools, in hopes of helping Levy improve his clumsy handwork. Levy, on the other hand, gives up on working and leaves his father alone outside. He goes to the shed and takes the box with his mother's things, before heading into his old bedroom. For a while, Levy checks out one of his mother's books, until Juko calls him. At that moment, a man named Tarek arrives in front of their cottage. Tarek introduces himself as the foreman sent by the agency to help them with the necessary renovations. To Juko's dismay, Tarek does not speak Finnish, and can only converse with them using his decent English. While Juko tries to explain the renovation plans to Tarek, Levy acts as a translator between them, showing his amusement at his father's distress. That same day, Juko calls the agency to complain about Tarek's inability to speak in Finnish, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Tarek begins to work on the renovations along with Levy. Levy apologizes to Tarek for how his father acts towards him, and Tarek casually lets it pass. Having no other choice, Juko continues working. He frequently observes Tarek, still feeling anxious towards him. They later find out that Tarek is from Syria, who used to work as an architect, but is unable to get the same job in Finland. Juko then brags that he made the family cottage by himself from scratch. In reply, Tarek compliments him, saying that the family cottage has a good structure. After a while, Juko orders Levy to prepare a meal for them. In the midst of preparing, Levy quietly watches Tarek, sneaking glances towards him. Later, Juko informs Levy that he needs to handle an urgent business in their small transport company, leaving him and Tarek alone in the family cottage. Levy complains at first, but Juko assures him that he will be back in a few hours. Outside, Tarek continues to work on the necessary renovations with Levy assisting him. Levy initiates an awkward small talk with Tarek in an attempt to get to know him. Levy learns that it is Tarek's first time working on family cottages, and that he has only been in Finland for less than 6 months. While resting, Levy and Tarek hang out by the yard, continuing their conversation. Levy tells Tarek about the groundwater they have access to in the family cottage, and how his father thinks of it as the best water in the world since it came from Finnish soil. He also opens up about his thesis, and proceeds to talk about the French and Finnish poets he has been researching. While studying literature, Levy shares his belief that seeing the ugly is important to appreciate the beauty in the world. The two later discover an old boat near the lake. Levy tells Tarek that they always used the boat for fishing when he was younger. In reply, Tarek explains that he never learned fishing because he grew up in a big city. At dusk, Levy and Tarek sit on the lakeside dock. Tarek marvels at the view of the lake while the sun sets, taking a photo. While watching Tarek, Levy realizes how much he has forgotten to appreciate the beauty of his home. Back then, Levy badly wanted to be somewhere else and escape from Finland and their family cottage. Just then, Juko calls Levy, telling him that he won't be coming for the rest of the day. Levy explains this to Tarek afterwards, saying that his father's business is having problems at the moment, so he needs to be there to handle it. Tarek then asks if he could take a shower, but Levy answers that they do not have a running water connection yet. Instead, Levy brings him to the working sauna in the family cottage. For a while, the two of them grow silent inside the sauna while drinking Juko's beer cans. Levy breaks the silence, asking Tarek if Syria is very different from Finland. According to Tarek, the people in Finland are very different, as they are more detached and reserved. He expresses his anxiety as a foreigner, saying that he is scared to make friends in Finland. He has come to believe that Finnish people are unwelcome to strangers because they are not used to them. Tarek also shares the prejudices that some people have of him as someone who came from the Middle East. Eventually, Tarek opens up about his family who are all still in Syria. He admits to being a Syrian refugee, revealing that he does not want to go back since he does not want to do military service. While he wishes for his family to have a better and safer life outside of Syria, Tarek is uncertain on making them come to Finland because they are very conservative. In agreement, Levy also adds that he is suspended until he finishes his studies, allowing him to be excused from doing military service for the meantime. They grow closer, sharing their common hate towards military service and all the other things that are being forced upon them. Levy and Tarek jump to the lake afterwards and drink the rest of Juko's canned beer until the evening. While drinking, Levy also finds out that Tarek is not interested in women and dating since he is still adjusting to his new life in Finland. As their conversation goes on, Tarek mentions that he also wants to visit Paris and travel the world. In reply, Levy offers to take him on a tour around Paris whenever he comes. Levy briefly adds that he likes living in Paris, and the place itself encourages him to be a great writer. Later, Tarek rises from his seat and decides to play music using the old records in the cottage. As they listen to the music, the tension between them slowly arises. Levy and Tarek naturally give in to their desire and attraction, sharing a passionate night inside the family cottage. The next day, Levy wakes up alone in his bedroom. He reads a book on the lakeside while Tarek continues to work on the renovations, when Juko suddenly arrives in the cottage. Levy rushes back to the cottage to get rid of the beer cans they consumed, just in time before Juko discovers them. During lunch, Levy, Tarek, and Juko share a meal together in the family cottage. Juko awkwardly tries to initiate a conversation with Tarek, telling him about the small transport company he is running. According to Juko, he works with a paper mill and delivers wood for the production of newspapers. On the other hand, the business is in a crisis at present because people do not read so many newspapers anymore. As a result, Juko decided to renovate their family cottage and sell it for a reasonable price, which can help them improve their small company. Tarek seemingly approves of his decision, stating that he can take a good price for the cottage when the renovation is complete. Juko slowly becomes curious about his profession and begins to ask Tarek if being an architect is good. Levy notices Juko's interest, commenting at how his father appreciates Tarek's work over his. On another note, Tarek replies that while his profession is good, it is difficult to find work as an architect, especially in a place where he cannot speak the language. Later that day, the three go on with the repairs and renovations in the family cottage. Levy waits for Tarek to go into the storage shed before sharing a short and intimate moment with him inside. He pulls Tarek for a lustful kiss, managing to break away right before Juko finds them. Sometime later, Juko goes into the kitchen and discovers the cans of beer inside a plastic bag. Nonetheless, Juko heads outside and quietly checks on Levy and Tarek, who are in the middle of painting the walls. Much later, Levy is taking a break when Juko asks him where Tarek slept. Levy lies, saying that Tarek slept on the couch. Juko lets it pass without much suspicion, and informs Levy that he will be focusing his attention more on the transport company for the meantime. He leaves the two of them in the family cottage, instructing Levy to take charge of the renovation. Levy, on the other hand, takes the opportunity to spend more time with Tarek. The two ultimately ignore the remaining work in the renovations and head to the sauna. They make love and stay close for the rest of the day, tirelessly caressing and fondling each other. Filled with affection, Levy and Tarek stare at each other, taking turns in giving compliments and sweet words. That night, Levy reads a poem that he wrote to Tarek about a man who spends the night with another man. According to Levy, the poem implies that the man still does it because he loves it, even though he knows what he is doing might not be good for him. He continues, revealing that the poem came from his experience back in Paris. Levi had a wild time as soon as he arrived in Paris for the first time. Unlike his home in Finland, Levy felt free and emancipated in Paris, to the extent that he started using dating apps immediately when he got there. In turn, Tarek shares that his experience was similar when he first arrived in Finland. Back in Syria, Tarek used dating apps as well, but he felt trapped. Wanting to be cautious around his family, Tarek never put a photo of his face and always had to choose someone who lives far away from him. Their conversations become even more intimate throughout the night, as Levy and Tarek relate to each other emotionally. Tarek eventually lets himself be vulnerable, leaning his head on Levy's shoulder as he talks about the unwantedness that he feels from the way other people treat him. At that moment, Tarek discovers a painting on the wall which belonged to Levy's mother. As soon as he learns about her passing, Tarek comforts Levy and expresses his admiration for the painting. Consequently, Levy shares that his mother was a teacher who was passionate about art. Back then, Levy would come home from school and find his mother painting while listening to old French records. This memory has become one of the main reasons why he decided to live and study in Paris. The next day, Levy and Tarek head to the grasslands early and make the most of their time together in the countryside. They also use the old boat they found to sail on the lake and wait for the sun to rise. On the boat, the two talk about their experiences from past relationships. Tarek says that he has been in love twice, while Levy had one relationship in Paris after his mother died. As they look at the rising sun, Levy begins to feel regretful in his lack of appreciation in the beauty of his home. He admits that he was so focused on running away and escaping his homeland that all he could see was the ugliness and nothing about its beauty. Later, Levy wakes up from bed and catches Tarek talking to someone on the phone. He watches him shortly before going back to sleep unsuspectingly. After a while, Levy gets up from bed and approaches Tarek, who has continued with the renovation. To his surprise, Levy notices that Tarek is suddenly treating him coldly. Levy attempts to caress Tarek's head, but Tarek quickly dismisses him, claiming that he needs to work. Confused, Levy asks Tarek if there is any problem between them. Tarek assures him that there is nothing wrong, but Levy remains unconvinced of his answer. Before Levy could further question him, Tarek asks him for space and to let him do what he is hired to do in the cottage. Thus, Levy takes their old bike and decides to bike around the countryside. He heads to the old store he used to go to, only to find it empty and abandoned. A Finnish local woman named Perjo slowly approaches Levy, recognizing him as Juko's child. Perjo, who also used to work in the store, informs Levy that it has been closed for a while now. When Perjo asks about their family cottage, Levy tells her that his father is now planning to sell it for extra income. Levy then comes back to the family cottage empty-handed. He finds Tarek sitting in front of the lake and approaches him. After a while of silence, Tarek apologizes for being cold and distant around him earlier. He explains to Levy that he had an argument with his mother over the phone. According to Tarek, his family is considering coming to Finland with him. His mother's asylum application was rejected, so they are planning to travel across the sea instead. His mood turned sour when his mother began accusing him of not taking care of them. Tarek continues, saying that he wants his family safe as much as he wants Levy to be there with him. However, he is tired of living a double life in which he needs to hide his real self and feelings. In turn, Levy brings up that one of the reasons why he left was because of his father. Eventually, Tarek and Levy confess their feelings for each other. On the other hand, they both realize that even though their feelings are mutual, their relationship will not likely develop because of their current circumstances. Unwilling to give up, Levy tells Tarek that his studies are almost finished, and that he can come back from Paris sooner. But then, Tarek believes that Levy does not belong in Finland because he is meant to do greater things with his career in Paris. Seeing Levy hurt and saddened, Tarek tells him not to think about the future and allow themselves to enjoy the moment they have. They go back to the cottage and make love as much as they can, making the most of their remaining time. The following day, the two go out for a drive across the Finnish countryside. While admiring the view, Tarek and Levy begin talking about their future plans. Levy says that he is flying back to Paris to get started with his thesis. Tarek, on the other hand, plans to earn more money as he has gotten another project that is similar to the family cottage. He will also be enrolling in a language course and learn how to speak Finnish. Levy is delighted by the news, saying that Tarek can read the poem he wrote about him when he learns the language. Just then, Levy finds out that he has several missed calls from Joko. They drive back to the family cottage in a rush and find Joko waiting for them. As soon as they arrive, Joko scolds Levy and Tarek. He questions them for being outside during their working day and complains at the lack of progress they did with the renovations during his absence. Joko then reveals that he has known about Levy and Tarek's affair for a while, but has not said anything about it. When Joko comments at Tarek's incompetence as a worker, Levy immediately defends Tarek. However, Joko grows angrier, leading him to fire Tarek without giving him money. Levy tries to stop Tarek from packing his bags, but to no avail. He asks Levy to give him some time to be alone and encourages him to settle his problems with his father. Tarek apologizes to Levy for everything that happened before finally leaving the cottage. Shortly after, Levy packs his things, decided to escape from his father again. On his way out, Joko opens up about Levy's mother, saying that he blames himself for her death just as Levy blames him. Levy stops in his tracks and shares a quiet moment with his father. Throughout the end, Levy stays in the cottage until the dark and stares alone at the lake, deep in thought. Unlike most mainstream romance drama films, A Moment in the Reeds features a flourishing love story of two men from different cultural backgrounds. The entire film is taken in Finland in a refreshing and beautiful location. The cinematography is intended to be simple, soft, and gentle, in order to show the rawness and give emphasis to the intimacy between the two characters. There is no tragedy of some sort, aside from the main conflict, which is the prejudice that comes with their budding love. The title itself implies that their forbidden love story is nothing else but a moment, and most likely ends in a sad note. So far, the only disapproving aspect of this film is its incomplete and lackluster ending. But as a result, the quality of the entire film has been highly affected by this. In other words, the filmmakers failed to show in detail how the conflict was resolved. For instance, the film briefly mentions deep-rooted issues about the refugee crisis, generational shift in social change, and racism. Levy's father is obviously shown as the type of person who easily gets angry and is not open to gay relationships, more so accepting Tarek, a foreigner who is trying to fit in their country. But in the end, there is no outright confrontation between Levy and his father Joko. They did not openly talk about Levy's sexual orientation, or any kind of implication of acceptance and forgiveness. The lack of resolution from the VA ending undermines the intention of developing gay-themed films. Aside from shedding light on their perspectives, there is nothing much to look forward to. The film does not in any way promote a healthy perspective towards the LGBTQ community. Overall, A Moment in the Reeds has the makings of a decent film, but could have been done better. Nonetheless, it can be viewed by mature audiences of all sexual orientations.